Makebi Zulu claims Lungu's mantle. Real PF members will choose me. 2026 Bombshell. Good day, viewers. Welcome to another edition of InspirAfrica Official. I'm Nakash. You know, this week has been quite extraordinary in Zambian politics, and I have to say, what we're witnessing right now is nothing short of political theater at its finest. Or perhaps, its most controversial. Today, we're diving deep into a story that has sent shockwaves through the opposition corridors of power and left political analysts scrambling to make sense of what comes next. Picture this. A man stands at the center of one of Africa's most bizarre political dramas. A former minister, a constitutional lawyer, a family spokesperson caught between two nations, and now, a presidential aspirant who claims to carry the torch of a leader whose body remains unburied, thousands of kilometers away, locked in a legal battle that has stretched on for 5 long months. But here's where it gets truly explosive. How does a man transform grief into ambition? How does someone turn a funeral dispute into a presidential campaign platform? What happens when the spokesperson for a deceased president suddenly declares himself the rightful heir to that very president's political legacy? And perhaps most critically, can you campaign from beside a coffin and expect the nation to take you seriously? Is Makebi Zulu a visionary carrying Edgar Lungu's unfinished dream, or is he an opportunist exploiting tragedy for political gain? Will genuine PF members embrace him as their savior, or reject him as someone who has kept their beloved leader in limbo while building his own political brand? And as Zambia hurdles toward 2026, can a party fractured by faction fights, ethnic tensions, and unresolved grief unite behind a man whose very candidacy is inseparable from the controversy surrounding a burial that never happened? The answers, my friends, are as complex as the man at the center of this storm. The revelation came to light most dramatically just hours ago when Makebi Zulu, speaking in Lusaka this morning, made a declaration that left little room for ambiguity. Let's establish the timeline, because context is everything here. On June 17, 2025, former Zambian President Edgar Lungu passed away in South Africa. His death sent the Patriotic Front into immediate turmoil. A party already weakened by electoral defeat in 2021 now faced the loss of its most dominant figure. But what should have been a straightforward state funeral became anything but. The Lungu family, represented by their lawyer and spokesperson Makebi Zulu, resisted government attempts to repatriate the body to Zambia. Legal battles erupted in South African courts. Weeks turned into months. June became July, July became August, August became September, and still, Edgar Lungu remained unburied. Throughout this period, Makebi Zulu positioned himself as the family's chief defender, their legal representative, their voice in what became an increasingly bitter standoff with the Zambian government. Critics began calling him Malukula, a name implying he was profiting from keeping Lungu's body in South Africa. Then, on October 3rd, political analyst Chris Zamani Zimba publicly endorsed Makebi Zulu as a credible presidential candidate, calling him a loyal son of Edgar Lungu. The endorsement was controversial, coming as it did while the burial dispute remained unresolved. By early October, tensions within PF escalated. Sources revealed that Makebi Zulu and Tasila Lungu, Edgar Lungu's daughter, were quietly consolidating support from Eastern and Muchinga provinces. PF Secretary General Raphael Nakasinda issued a stern warning against tribal mobilization. On November 10th, just 2 weeks ago, Makebi Zulu arrived at the PF Secretariat in Lusaka to a hero's welcome. He filed his expression of interest for the party presidency, forking out a whopping K200,000 nomination fee. Senior party members, including Mumbai Fairai, Nkandu Luo, and Godfrida Sumeli, turned up to show solidarity. 3 days earlier, he had returned from South Africa, still overseeing the remains of his late mentor. Yesterday, November 20th, Makebi Zulu appeared on Schuster's House podcast in what analysts are calling a calculated political pitch. He accused President Hakainde Hichilema's administration of turning state power into a weapon, pointed to the attack on Given Labinda in Kabwe as evidence of cadre violence, and positioned himself as the man who could restore Zambia's democracy. And this morning, November 22, 2025, he made his boldest claim yet. Speaking to the Zambian media this morning, Makebi Zulu did not hold back. His words were direct, confident, and loaded with political symbolism. With maximum respect to other presidential contenders in our political party, he began, his voice measured but firm, I believe I am the only one who has what it takes to win the party presidential seat as well as the national one because of the vision of President Lungu that I carry with me. Then came the line that has dominated headlines across the country. I am therefore banking on genuine PF members to vote for me at the convention in Kabwe. That word, genuine, is doing a lot of heavy lifting. It suggests there are PF members who are, what? Fake, disloyal, not true believers. But Makebi doubled down on this distinction. In earlier statements to the Daily Nation, he had framed his candidacy in almost messianic terms. I am here as a candidate, hoping to participate in this race, not for selfish ambitions, but for purposes of uniting the party, he said when filing his nomination papers. We lost our president, President Edgar Lungu, and as a party, we desire that he be given a dignified burial. The connection between burial and candidacy was explicit. He continued, I first sought the Lungu family's blessing before entering the presidential race. During his podcast appearance yesterday, Makebi Zulu became more pointed in his criticisms of the current government. This is not about people in UPND regalia, it is cadres committing crimes, he said, referring to the attack on Given Labinda. The ruling party campaigned on ending political thuggery only to preside over what he called an upsurge in attacks. When pressed by host Jackson Fairai about whether he could actually defeat Hakainde Hichilema in 2026, Makebi's response was telling. UPND has created a large pool of angry and disappointed voters, he replied. All that remains is organization and vote protection. Stealing votes is a coup against the people and should be treated as an assault on the state itself. He urged Zambians to be vigilant at polling stations, describing vote protection as a shared national responsibility, not just a party task. On the sensitive matter of Edgar Lungu's burial, Makebi carefully navigated the political minefield. A spokesperson does not decide, he said, avoiding direct discussion of the standoff. But he added, with deliberate political calculation, if elected, I will give President Lungu the dignified burial he deserves. In his statement to the Daily Nation, he had been more expansive about his vision. As Zambia continues to redefine its future, I am guided by one enduring conviction. The strength of our republic rests on respect for the Constitution and fidelity to justice. I pledge to steer Zambia away from a culture of vengeance, retribution, and vindictiveness, which has fractured the country's unity and spirit of togetherness. He also emphasized internal democracy within PF. I am happy with the internal democracy in the Patriotic Front as enshrined in our party constitution and Article 60 of the Republican Constitution, which encourages all political parties to embrace internal democracy. This is a true sign of growing democracy within the mighty Patriotic Front. And then, in a moment that revealed his strategic thinking, he added, the objective, in my words, is to give Zambians the country they always expected to have when they first embraced multi-party democracy. When asked about the PF being potentially barred from the ballot, his response was defiant. PF is bigger than papers held by any individual. If democracy is strangled to the point that PF is prevented from appearing on the ballot under its current name, the movement would still regroup and participate, with all options open. So what does all of this actually mean? And why has Makebi Zulu's candidacy provoked such polarized reactions? Let's start with the elephant in the room, or rather, the coffin in Johannesburg. Political analyst Mike Ntalasha raised pointed ethical questions weeks ago. Mr. Zulu's reported ambitions have prompted calls from some party members for him to come out openly and declare his intentions. However, this growing interest also comes with its own set of moral and ethical questions. The criticism is blunt. How can you campaign for president while serving as the spokesperson for a family that has kept a former head of state unburied for 5 months? Critics have dubbed him Malukula, a nickname suggesting he has benefited politically from the burial delay. Cultural commentator Lillian Matambo went even further, stating, "It's a taboo in our Zambian culture to even shake hands with Makebi Zulu or move about with Lungu unburied." The accusations cut deep, that Makebi Zulu has deliberately prolonged the burial saga to build his political profile, to position himself as the grieving loyalist, the faithful servant, the keeper of Lungu's flame. But his supporters see it differently. They've embraced the biblical nickname David, positioning him as a brave outsider ready to face the Goliath of incumbency. Senior PF figures like Mumbai Fairai, Mkhandu Luo, and Godfrida Sumeli have publicly backed him. The factional dynamics within PF are crucial here. Since Lungu's death, the party has been paralyzed by competing power centers. Given Lubinda's camp in Lusaka, those aligned with Lungu's inner circle in South Africa, and various regional power brokers. According to internal party sources quoted by the Zambian Observer, Zulu and Tassila, who have remained in South Africa since Lungu's death, are quietly consolidating support among party loyalists from eastern and Muchinga provinces. PF Secretary General Raphael Nakasinda has warned that any form of tribal mobilization will not be tolerated. But the warning itself reveals that ethnic politics are already in play. One Lusaka-based analyst put it starkly: the PF is entering a defining moment. If they fail to manage succession with discipline and transparency, they risk turning tribal tension into full-scale fragmentation. The ghost of Lungu's influence still hangs over the party, and until that is resolved, PF cannot rebuild. There's also the question of legitimacy. At least 4 other candidates have filed for the PF presidency. Given Lubinda, Brian Mundable, Chanda Katotobe, and Joseph Mutalo, each has their own base, their own claim to leadership. Makebi's assertion that genuine PF members will choose him is seen by rivals as divisive, implying that those who don't support him are somehow not real party members. Legal and political questions swirl around the candidacy as well. Some analysts note that Tassila Lungu, his rumored running mate, may not even be eligible if she holds dual citizenship. Then there's the broader narrative Makebi is constructing. By accusing UPND of weaponizing state power, by pointing to attacks on PF officials, by promising vote protection, he's positioning himself as a fighter, a defender of democracy, a man who won't be intimidated. But one critical question haunts his campaign. Can you defeat a sitting government with a divided party? Political commentator Brian Matambo observed after the podcast interview, "You cannot defeat the ruling party with a divided party, scattered messaging, and competing presidential camps." For a party heading into a high-stakes convention with injunctions, faction fights, cadre clashes, and a still unburied former head of state, Makebi Zulu's interview was not just rhetoric. It was a signal of what PF wants to become, and what it still fears. The unresolved burial issue remains the most significant liability. Until Edgar Lungu is laid to rest, every speech Makebi makes, every policy he proposes, every rally he holds will be shadowed by the question: why is the man you claim to represent still in a morgue in Johannesburg? And there's the haunting parallel. Edgar Lungu himself rose to power on claims that he was the chosen heir of Michael Sata. Today, PF is once again running on the endorsement of the dead. Only this time, as one commentator acidly noted, the figure being endorsed is not even buried, and the man championed as successor is still negotiating the terms of that burial. So there you have it, viewers. Makebi Zulu has thrown down the gauntlet. He has claimed Edgar Lungu's mantle, declared himself the carrier of the late president's vision, and challenged genuine PF members to rally behind him at the Kabwe convention. Whether he emerges as the party's standard-bearer or becomes another footnote in PF's post-Lungu chaos remains to be seen. The convention will be the ultimate test, not just of Makebi Zulu's political strength, but of the PF's ability to move beyond factionalism, ethnic politics, and the long shadow of a leader whose physical remains are still caught between two countries. As we move closer to 2026, one thing is certain: Zambian politics has lost none of its drama, its complexity, or its capacity to surprise. Thank you so much for watching this edition of InspirAfrica Official. We appreciate your time, your engagement, and your continued support. What do you think about Makebi Zulu's candidacy? Is he the right person to carry forward Edgar Lungu's vision? Or is this political opportunism wrapped in the language of loyalty? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We read every single one, and your perspectives help shape our future coverage. We'll be back tomorrow with more stories, more analysis, and more of the news that matters to you and to Africa. Until then, stay informed, stay engaged, and keep questioning. I'm Nakash, and this has been InspirAfrica Official.